Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Atmosphere Press Fall 2025 Writers Summit. This is day two of the summit. I'm glad to see so many people coming back, and I'm excited to bring these talks to you on the second day. If you don't already know me, I'm Hala Alawi, Atmosphere Press's book publicity and events manager. Thank you so much for joining us for this summit talk. In this talk, we're going to be learning about growing your readership with events with our guest, Joel Geier. Joel has covered the craft beer scene since 2016, and his recent publication, Flights Across America, involved a cross country book tour. So he's seen his fair share of author events. At any time, please do use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to send in any of your questions for Joel. We're going to be answering them as he's presenting and also posing some of those questions to him live. Also, just for attendees of this talk, we're running an exclusive giveaway because the first 5 people to sign up for Manuscript Makers, a subscription service to help you finish writing your manuscript offered by Atmosphere Press, will get 2 months of their subscription free. That is a $158 value, so that's definitely something you're going to want to take advantage of. I'll put a link to sign up in the chat. Just be sure to mention this summit talk in your order notes. Also, this talk is brought to you by Book Life, Publishers Weekly's website dedicated to indie authors. Book Life reviews are guaranteed paid reviews from Publishers Weekly reviewers. They help you establish credibility and enhance your marketing. Plus, they give you actionable feedback. And for a limited time, Atmosphere Press Writers Summit attendees will receive $40 off a Book Life review. You can visit booklife.com/writers summit to get your discount. Book Life reviews have become the gold standard in paid reviews because of their quality. So get your book the insight and the credibility of a Book Life review. Again, for a limited time, Atmosphere Press Writers Summit attendees will receive $40 off this premier Book Life review. Dozens of Atmosphere authors have received glowing reviews from Book Life, including a few books that have received their Premier Editor's Pick designation. So, Atmosphere Press is proud to collaborate with Book Life. I'm going to put a link to get that discount on a Book Life review in the chat for you all. With all of that, I am so excited to introduce our guest speaker. Joel Geier has covered the craft beer scene since 2016 via social media, multiple podcasts, his website, and other freelance articles. He resides in Glendale, Wisconsin, but has lived in 14 states with his wife Rosa since they were married in 2015. After completing his master's degree in nonprofit management in 2019, he became a stay at home dad and is the proud father of Lily and Bo. He loves visiting breweries and sharing his experiences with others, which is culminating with his first book, Flights Across America. Joel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction. It is an absolute pleasure to be here to discuss events and how you can use events to really be able to promote your book to a different level and make connections with readers. And as Hala said, I'm Joel Geier. My book, Flights Across America, A Brewery Lover's Journey, has now been out for about 10 months after being published last December. And I have had the opportunity to do a variety of events all across the country. And speaking of that here, I can go ahead and start the slideshow. So how did we get here? I guess we already kind of talked about who I am, both through my lovely introduction. But Flights Across America, like I said, was published last December. And since then, I have hosted well over a dozen events across 6 different states, primarily here in the Midwest, but I will discuss later on about how I was able to utilize other opportunities to do events in other parts of the country. These have ranged in different, various styles of events, from simple signings and appearances to live Q&As to just smaller impromptu events. So what will I all be covering today? We will be talking about types of events. There are a lot of different events that you can utilize as an author. And so I think it's important to vary your approach and to do different angles to get to your readers. I'll also talk about how to approach event planning, the prep that you need to do, how you need to approach what you need to do approaching the event, and then also what to expect during the events. What will you be doing? How will it look like? Because again, this varies based off of the type of event you will be doing and your goals with the event. Finally, we'll be talking about managing expectations, which I feel is very important when it comes to events. It was something that I had to learn on the fly because, as we'll discuss, some events are going to go better than others, and dealing with that is a very important part of this whole process. So first of all, types of events. I have had the opportunity to do a lot of different events. Primarily, though, the first one is going to be your book release. And I think this is the most important event. This is the event that I'm sure authors are going to be the most excited about. It is your first opportunity to have your book out into the public and to get it into the hands of readers, and you get to meet readers and talk with them. And so making sure that you are planning your book release well in advance to give you ample time to promote it and get your ducks in order and have it all situated is very important. So with my personal book, I was able to do my event not at a bookstore or something similar. I did my event at the largest craft brewery here in Milwaukee, and I planned it well in advance. As soon as I had a date from Atmosphere, I started reaching out, figuring out where I was going to do it, how it was going to look like. In my case, I wanted to do a live Q&A. I felt that better suited my book than a reading. And so I had it set up where it started out with a signing. We had a 1 hour time slot for a live Q&A that we, really publicized, both me and the brewery, and then had another hour afterwards for just, more of a meet and greet signing situation. And so deciding how you want that book release to look is important. You can do it, like I said, a variety of different places. I think that's, whether it's doing it at a brewery, like I said, for my book, but for most people, it will be a bookstore. I also think, though, to be creative, look for other types of venues that you feel could match your book, especially if it is a nonfiction book, looking into ways to utilize that. Readings for me, I did not feel like readings for my book was a great fit, but for many books, it will be. Um, I also looked at doing different markets. So there are in a lot of areas, there will be kind of these maker market type things, these local markets at a variety of locations, where people will be there to sell all sorts of different goods. I was in between a booth that was selling local honey and like locally made yarn products. And so that is just kind of a fun vibe to be at where you're going to get a whole mess of different people that are not just there necessarily for reading, but that means that you'll get your book into the eyes of people that may not otherwise have seen it. I've also been able to do events where you're able to get in as part of a larger scale event. I was there for an Oktoberfest event at one of these large beer gardens that had tons of live music, lots of different other types of events, different tours. And so being a small part of that was a lot of fun. When I am doing an event, I like to try to pair it up with something else. Like I said, when I was doing these events at breweries, trying to match it up with a live music event, I found was helpful because it's drawing in, you're going to have more people there in general that may not otherwise, again, have been there. So there's a lot of different approaches you can take with the type of events. And so event planning. This was something that I took pretty seriously because I was trying to do events in a lot of different places. And so making sure that I had everything planned out very tightly was important to me. So you have to decide, first of all, where you're wanting to host your event and what type of event you're wanting to host and reaching out to these places, whether, oftentimes it would be a bookstore or other some type of market, and making sure that you have a good form of communication, that initial contact being very, direct with what you are trying to do, what your book is about, why you feel that your book would be good to bring in to their venue. And from there, making sure that you have it all planned out. And if you're traveling, one thing I always tried to do when I was traveling was planning multiple events. So, for instance, with me living here in Milwaukee, if I was going down to Chicago or if I was going over to Madison, I would try to have two events in the same day. one in like in the afternoon and one later in the evening, and making sure that they were spread out. So different parts of the city, or in Chicago's case, I did one more in the city of Chicago, and then I did one out in the suburbs, more to the north, kind of actually on my way home, so that it, made the travel more worth it. Um, and in those cases, both those cases, if I hadn't done the second event, I would have sold less than half the amount of books because the second event did better than the first event in both cases. And so with after you have that contact though, you're planning out, okay, it's going to be on this date at this time. What will be supplied? What do you need to bring? What do you want to bring? And I found that this was important because you don't want to have any surprises when you show up. As you can see in that bottom right picture, I have several small signs that I made up, kind of talking about the book. I had one that included some snippets from reviews from people that are from the book. I had one with QR codes for people, to follow me on different social media accounts, and to be able to pay me, all that kind of stuff. And I've shown up before and they didn't have a table, or they had a small little, I went to one bookstore that had a small little barrel that, hardly had room for the books, let alone all the signage. And so being able to communicate like, okay, I'm going to need this amount of space, or I kind of want to be set up in this way is important. So that way there's no surprises when you do arrive. Marketing, what will they do? What will you do? This is obviously very important if you are traveling, because if you don't have your normal local network, you shooting out a post to your followers is not going to have the same pull than it does when you are doing, one in your own area. And so talking with the venue, being like, are you going to share my posts? Are you going to create your own posts? Because I've had it both ways. I've had it where, as you can see there on the bottom for the book signing in Otay Ranch, that's in San Diego. I made different graphics and the brewery used those graphics. I've also had breweries that create their own graphics and create their own Facebook events. And so knowing what they are going to do is an important part of that. And this is where I also want to talk about with the traveling aspect of it. You may notice, like I said, doing an event in California. I was not doing this national book tour. I don't have, the famous funding and, all this kind of pull. This was a situation where my family was going out to visit other family in San Diego. And I took that opportunity to contact a brewery that was in my book, set up a book signing. And I actually had followers and readers from there that were able to come to that event to meet up with me, get their book signed, all that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And I did the same thing, traveling, doing events in St. Louis. I have family in the Twin Cities, so I did events up in the Twin Cities. And so taking advantage of traveling when you're not traveling necessarily just for the book, but if you are going other places, looking into opportunities to see if you can do an event in that city. So what to expect during events? Like I said, having all the setup and preparation ahead of time, knowing if you're going to have to, how much are you going to have to do ahead of time? I always like to get there at least 15 minutes early, make sure everything's set up, have all of my signage, and next up, I want to talk about bringing your own support. I think it's important to bring your own support if it's possible, whether that's, a family member, bringing a friend, just to have someone there to help kind of lay the groundwork and just helping with the preparation, first of all, but also being there to drum up attention, to be there to chat with you, make it seem like, you have some flow of traffic. They can go and talk with other people as well. But I will say one thing I learned early on. My dad stuck around and was, talking to me for a lot of the time. And then when he got up and left was when I finally had people come over, a couple people come over to talk to me. There are going to be people that if you're there talking with someone, they're not going to want to come in and interrupt. So make sure that you do have the time that if you have other people there with you, that you do set aside time where they kind of go off so that you are by yourself, giving other people the opportunity to come in if they feel more comfortable in that manner. So is it going to be more casual or is this planned out? Like I said, my initial book release party was more planned out. I had a set schedule with the Q&A. Things were more kind of orderly, whereas a lot of my other signings at breweries have just been more casual, where I've been hanging out for a couple hours. I did have another one where I did a Q&A, but for the most part, it's been more of a, hang out, talk to people, take some pictures, As you can see there, I like taking pictures with people that are coming to my events to post them, showing that you are, approachable, that you are out there wanting to meet with these readers. Because even though I know I myself don't view myself as a big deal whatsoever, I don't view myself as, someone hardly worth being able to come out to make a point to visit. But a lot of readers feel that way, and readers are going to feel that way about your book. They're going to be excited to see you. They're going to be excited to meet with you and talk with you about your book and make that personal connection that's going to make that book even more enjoyable for them. And so, leaving that impression on people, I feel, is really important. I'm a more extroverted person, and I know that for people that are more introverted, that is kind of hard to put yourself out there. But if you are able to, even in small baby steps, making those connections with readers is really important to them, and therefore it should be important to you. So managing expectations, as I said, this was something that I had to work on with events. And when you're there, obviously the primary goal is making connections with current and potential readers. You're going to have people that have already read your book, that are just excited to meet you. You're going to have people that are, have never heard of you that come walking by and check out your book. Many of them probably won't buy your book, but it's still important to talk with them, be approachable, talk with them about your book. It's something that I just enjoyed doing, to be honest. Whether or not they were going to buy the book, I love talking about my book with people and sharing my passion for it. And that all goes into the importance of being visible. When you're out there, you are putting your book out there, you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your face to this book, and that's going to make people more drawn to it. And even though you're doing this, though, not every event will be a success in terms of sales. I have, had events where I sell well over a dozen books, and there's a constant flow of traffic. People are, you're talking to people almost the entire time. It's a lot of fun. And I've had events where I'm sitting there for 2, 3 hours and I sell one, maybe two books. And there just isn't, the draw there that you thought there was going to be. And that happens. But every event that you put your book out into the public is a success. You are putting your book out there, you are getting eyes on your book. And even if you're only making a couple sales, those are still sales that you would otherwise not have made if you had not had this event. And you make those readership connections for the future. Making sure to follow up with the venue afterwards, I think, is something that's really important. So that way, if you ever wanted to do a second event, you have that built up relationship with them. And reflecting post event, figuring out, okay, what went well, what didn't go so well. Were there things, with the marketing that I could have done differently? Were there contacts I should have made differently? Or did this go really well? Were there things that I really liked from the marketing side of things that I need to make sure that I'm repeating for future events? But either way, events are really important. I love doing events. I feel like I've enjoyed them whether or not, obviously making more sales is more fun. When your book is being sold, you're having more fun. But I've enjoyed even the slow events because the opportunity to talk with people about my book that I'm so passionate about is a joy for me. And so I hope that, people listening here do look into doing events and doing lots of events and looking at a variety of places to do events so that getting a lot of different readers into your book. But yeah, I just want to thank you all for joining to learn more about doing events, and any questions that we have at this time, we're more than happy to answer.
All right. Thank you so much for those insights, Joel. I think it's really fantastic just to be able to see that from someone who's been in the action and had, experiences ranging across the board. So, as Joel mentioned, at this point we do have time for our audience Q&A. So, if you've got a question for Joel, please go ahead and put those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We're going to do our best to get to as many questions as possible. This first question, Joel, do you have any advice for authors who aren't able to travel? Have you done any virtual events, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, virtual events definitely can work. I have looked into doing some of them, part of that would be deciding, are you wanting to send signed copies to a physical location, or are you wanting this virtual event just to be a situation where you have like a QR code up on the screen, you have a link to go for have someone buy the book. But virtual events definitely can work. It's something that I wish I would have utilized more in a lot of ways. But that is one way, if you have connections in an area where you can, set up a virtual event, or just do a virtual event where it's not even for a set in stone location, where it just can be from all over the place. In that case, though, if you're wanting to do one where people are all over the place, you probably are looking to do a situation where you're just going to have the book ordered rather than having physical copies all over the place. But yeah, virtual events definitely are a way to get a lot of people from a lot of areas into one space to do a type of Q&A situation for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as we can attest to here at Atmosphere, where all of our events are, virtual, it's definitely something that can be fruitful and an enjoyable experience for sure. Another question for you, Joel. Did you know prior to the event that was hosting book signing, or prior to the event that they had hosted book signing events before, or were you the first one to do it there?
It did vary. I was at, some breweries that had hosted author events, and most of them though had hosted similar events, for people selling different things. Um, but that is one thing to do, to look into if you are doing it not at a bookstore, because obviously most bookstores, I guess I should have mentioned, a lot of local bookstores are going to be excited to have local authors. And like when you're in a bookstore, you kind of have a feeling of, okay, they kind of know the promotion side of, author events. It was different, in my case with breweries. But yeah, I mean, I was the guinea pig for a few, I think. And you could tell in terms of the promotion, some of those events were some of the slower events. Um, but it was still, it's good for them as well. It's good for them to have the different types of events and to get different people into their space as well.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes being the guinea pig can be a uniquely interesting experience,
Yeah,
I'm
definitely, it
sure.
definitely can be.
This next question I actually get a lot from authors, so I'm curious to hear your input. A question about stock. How do you guesstimate how many books to take with you?
That that's a great question. So I always bring more than I anticipate selling. And again, I ordered a big, a large amount more than I needed at the very beginning. But I have a suit, I have a small like carry-on type suitcase that I take to events. It's covered in brewery stickers, of course. But I have probably anywhere from, 30-ish books or so to take to my event. Um, I typically, know that I'm not going to sell that many, so I'm not worried about running out because in my eyes, it's better to have extras than to all of a sudden run out. Like you don't want to take, oh, I'm going to just take 10 books and all of a sudden you sell those first 10 in the hour. Because like I said, I've had events where I sell well over a dozen books. And so if I only brought a few, you want to run out. So I always bring more than you anticipate selling is it would be my advice for that.
Yeah, I know that's kind of do I bring too many or too few? And I've had some authors who will, they'll bring a set stock of books, but in case they run out, they'll have like a QR code that will go to like
Yeah.
the Amazon listing for their book. But I think it's good to err on the side of too
Yeah. I'd
many and to
rather
always be able.
if people are coming to your book event and your book signing, they're wanting to walk away with a copy of your book. Probably a signed copy of the book. That would be, that's always my thought is that the people are there. They're not wanting to just because they could just go to Amazon at any point. If they're there in person with you, they're hoping to walk away with a book.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a great point too. As close as you can get the customer to actually closing the sale, the better, right? So that kind
Yeah.
of all ties in, like Joel said. So, speaking of sales, what are some payment options you give to customers at your events? Or are you always
Yeah.
allowing the venue to handle sales? Or
Yeah, no, I handle my own sales. I should have included that in the presentation because that is a great point. So I have pretty much every option um for readers because I don't want to lose a sale because I don't have that option. So I have a Venmo account, I have a PayPal account. Like I said, I have a sign with QR codes for those things. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have cash and that you have change for cash, especially if your book is not like, if your book is $20, on the mark, it's not going to be as big of a deal. But if you have a $15 book or a $25 book, you're most likely going to have to make change for people if they're wanting to pay with cash. I also use the Square app so that I can take cards. From my personal experience, because I have tracked all of my book sales from all my events and, what was card versus Venmo versus cash. I would say the card and Venmo were the two most, followed by cash. And it was funny because there were some events where 10 of the sales were Venmo and nothing else. And there was an event where 11, all of it was cash. So it just depends, making sure that you have all the options for people. That would be, like I said, if you have an ability to take a credit card and to take Venmo and you have change for cash, I would say you're, in pretty good shape for the most part.
Yeah, it's really easy also to get access to a Square chip reader these
Yes,
days, so, I
it's
mean.
way easier than you would anticipate it would be. It is simpler than, it doesn't take, you don't have to have a ton of techie experience to be able to use one. And with depending on the phone that you have, once you have like the thing that you don't even have to have the thing to plug into your phone once you have it set up. A lot of times with the phones, you can even have it where you can just put the card on the back of the phone and it'll do it for you. So you don't even have to worry about having the extra, tech pieces to go along with it.
Right, totally. So we've talked about, the sales and how to handle that. On the other side of the kind of money questions, can you advise us about events budgeting? What do you usually allocate to an event? Do you have to pay the brewery for the venue? Are there other costs you have to cover? What are you thinking about in terms of
Yeah,
that?
so that is something that I have not had to pay for breweries at events necessarily. Most of the time, the breweries are just, they're happy to have me and host me. Um, the one type of event that I've had to pay for was the local like marketplace type of thing, where you're paying, a set amount. Um, and with that specific event, I ended up hardly breaking even, and so it wasn't necessarily an event for me that I wanted to go back and do more of. But in my case, I typically like to find places that are not going to charge you. Just for my own personal preference, you can, like I said, try some of the marketplaces. You may have good luck with that. Um, I have found that, like with bookstores, most places are not going to charge you, and I feel like if they are charging you, you need to make sure that you're thinking about, okay, if they're going to charge me even $50 to do this, how many sales am I going to have to make just to break even? Because then you're putting yourself in a position where you very well could be walking out in the red. Um, and it is, like I said, you're still getting yourself out there. It's all good, but at the end of the day, you're still not wanting to lose money by doing these events. So I would think long and hard about going to places that are going to charge you to make an appearance.
Very good. I mean, solid advice because, in some cases, maybe you determine it's worth it and it's something that you
Yeah.
want to do, even if you know you might not break even. But in so many cases, especially bookstores, but other outlets as well, and I've,
Yes.
as Joel has experience with breweries, even if they're not, making a percentage of the sales, that they're selling the copies for you, even when they're not doing that, a lot of those places will really want to highlight, like Joel said, local authors and work with those authors to feature you. Libraries are a great place as well to check
Yes.
in about that kind of programming.
Well, and being creative, like I said, if you have a nonfiction book, finding places that may tie into your topic that are not, your normal bookstore situation, I think is a good fun way to do it because it's going to get you to different types of people that otherwise may not. That and breweries are always excited because they know with a lot of events, I'm also bringing people in. I'm bringing people into their space that otherwise wouldn't be there on that given day that are going to be customers. And I know like a lot of businesses would feel the same way.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for that, Joel. Another question, I'd like to know about your signs. What do you bring with you to display at an event?
Yeah, so I actually I should have grabbed them so I can show them. So my signage, I have four usual signs. I have one sign that has bullet points that kind of, highlights the book's topics and what the book is all about. I have another sign that includes the promotional blurbs that are on the inside cover of the book that I had different people write. So kind of praise for the book, if you would say that, on one sign. I have another sign that includes the price, and a lot of times I will do a deal sometimes where it's like if you buy one, get the second book for $5 off. So I'll have a sign describing the price, and then I have another sign that has QR codes, and the QR codes for Venmo and PayPal, QR codes for my Instagram and my Twitter and my Facebook. The QR codes so that you can follow along with my own journey, as well as for paying me. So those are the four signs that I always bring. Occasionally, there'll be some other ones that, the brewery has made signs for me in the past, occasionally, that are just more of, headshot kind of promo type things. But I always make sure to bring my own signs because I want to make sure that I have that information there for people no matter what.
Absolutely. Visual cues are huge,
Yes,
right? And
yes,
drawing people in.
yes.
Um, Another question for you, and I know this will depend from author to author, but for you specifically, Joel, how do you measure success at events? Some events, like book fairs, can obviously be more expensive just to even attend,
Yeah.
but what ends up making the events worth the cost to you?
Well, like I said, I did struggle initially when I did have my first event that didn't go super well, that I didn't sell very many at. And my wife was the one that kind of got me to view it in a different light, being that any event that you are out there and that you are making, well, one, positive money, but also that you're making these connections with people, you're getting to share this book. Because it's a book that I worked a very long time on, that I'm very passionate about. And so anytime that I am out there getting to share that passion with other people, to me is a success. And getting to do it in person is a success because I mean, I am happy and I know that there's been online sales from all over the country, that I've been very happy about, and people messaging me about it. But there's something really, really unique and awesome about being able to hand the person the book in person, and talk with them about it and having their excitement for the book and getting to feel that in person. Um, so anytime that happens, that's great. Obviously, I like it if I can sell at least double-digit books. I mean, that's something that I've been able to do, several times. But even when that doesn't happen, I am still enjoying myself being out there and sharing my book with people.
Totally. I think that's huge, determining what's a metric for success for you, and it can
Yep.
change from event to
Yep.
event. So, speaking of changing things event to event, this is an interesting question. Do you change your book price per event or at will during a signing? Do you offer discounts? And if you do change your prices, do you ever advertise that ahead of time?
Yeah, so like I say, I have occasionally had like specials for like when I was at one of the bookstores. I was actually at it's a bookstore that was downtown in a suburb, and it was on the same day as this town hosts a pub crawl, between these different bars that go along, and the bookstore is kind of in the same stretch of downtown. And so I did a special pub crawl special, where I did do a special discount where I gave $5 off, which meant that, I wasn't making near the same, but and I did promote it. I was hoping that because it was going to be people coming in that wouldn't necessarily be, it's during a pub crawl. So it's not necessarily during the same type of readership that you may get. And so I thought maybe offering the discount would help. And I did make several sales. Um, Otherwise, a lot of times in person, after the initial couple events, I have been offering if you buy a second copy, you get the $5 off as well. Because I have had people buy multiple copies because, for my book specifically, I feel like it's a great gift for any beer lover, beer fanatic. And so people would buy a second copy occasionally for a gift for someone else that they know. Um, but yeah, so yeah.
All right. Yeah. So there's definitely room to kind of customize, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And yeah, that reminds me, there's another question in the Q&A that I want to be clear, we're not giving individual tax advice, but since you do events in a ton of different places, how do you keep track of your sales information and how much money you made and what you actually need to
Yeah,
report?
so I am a big spreadsheet guy. Um, and so I can actually pull up here. I have a spreadsheet. Oh, and it's blurry. I have a spreadsheet and I include the date of the event, I have the location of the event, and then I have separate columns for, as I said, all types of payments. So I have a column for how many sales were done by card, how many were done by Venmo, how many were done by PayPal, how many were cash, the total number of sales, and then the total profit from that event. Um, as well as, the total, like how much money was brought in and then how much of it was profit. And then I have also at the very end, I have special notes about, what type of event it was. So I'm very diligent in terms of tracking, okay, in this month I made this many sales in this manner. So I would highly recommend just, having a spreadsheet's a very easy way to have things grouped together, by category and by date, so that it's easy to sort.
Totally. Yeah, I'm very much an organization geek like that
Yep.
as well. So
Yeah, I
follows
have spreadsheets for
in
all my brewery visits and all that kind of stuff too. So I'm very much a spreadsheet guy. So it just came natural to me, I guess, to use that.
definitely. And we've just got time for one more question, Joel. So very apt as we are leaving off this Q&A, but when you think about giveaways, are there any sort of substantive keepsakes that you find people at your events really enjoy getting to go home with? Anything like besides bookmarks, or do bookmarks work the best? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like bookmarks do really well because they're such a simple and easy and they go so well with the book. Um, I've done some stickers with like my logo because again, I'm in a different situation where I also have like a social media brewery. It's called Brewery Travels, where I have like this own. I don't. It's not a persona, but this own like separate brand almost that is behind this whole book. So I have my own logos and all that kind of stuff that go along with it. Um, and I've also, showcased, I have these, coasters, all this kind of thing. It depends on your book. But yes, bookmarks are definitely the safest, easiest, and probably most cost-effective way to go about it.
Absolutely. And again, readers are going to need those bookmarks. I have tons
Yes,
and I cycle
yes.
through them. So all right. Well, that is all the questions we have time for in this talk. So, thank you so much to Joel Geier for sharing your knowledge, especially all this hands on experience you've kind of compiled into all of this advice for everyone here today. Thank you also to everybody in the audience for sending in great questions about setting up events. I hope this helps a new boom of author events pop up. But the next talk for today will be an author reading featuring four award winning Atmosphere Press authors. So, to rejoin the Zoom for the author reading, you'll just click the same link you clicked to join the Zoom for this talk. I hope that this reading can be an opportunity for everyone to kind of sit back and relax. You don't necessarily have to take notes during that session as much, but it's a good way to learn more about the quality of work we prefer to publish here at Atmosphere. And of course, while you're in the digital waiting room, you can enjoy excerpts from the audiobook Eyes of Iris by Joshua A. H. Harris. Thank you again to this talk's sponsor, Book Life. Get your book the insight and credibility of a Book Life review. And for a limited time, Atmosphere Press Writers Summit attendees will receive $40 off their review. Just make sure to use the link I put in the chat. Remember that the first 5 people to sign up for Manuscript Makers, a subscription service for finishing your manuscript offered by Atmosphere Press, will get 2 months of their subscription free. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing all of you in the next talk.